Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Hope you're having a wonderful fall. It got chilly overnight. Yesterday, I think they said was the warmest day on record for October. What was it? I don't even know, 20 something. And man, 20 degrees difference just overnight from day to day. Whew. Let's go ahead and get into this one. We're going to talk about a couple of really interesting plants. Probably, yeah. Well, at least do two. Let's do three. Yeah, let's do three. Why not? We'll start as usual with the Spring Foraging Cookbook. And we're up to the M's now. I do things by alphabetical order, and we will do Mallow and Marsh Marigold. Now, I've done a whole show on the medicinal benefits of mallow. It's one of the very best herbs for digestion, very good for the lungs. It has some really actually very interesting properties. Dr. Patrick Jones, everybody's favorite herbalist these days. Everybody loves Doc Jones. He's hilarious and he's incredibly smart, incredibly good at what he does, and one of the most kind, big-hearted people. I mean, he's got like, I don't even know, 16 or 20 kids. And I mean, most of them are adopted. Almost all of them are adopted. But big Mormon family in Utah, if I'm not mistaken. And he's not only an herbalist, but a naturopath, which means, he actually went to college for this stuff, and a practicing veterinarian. So he sees a lot of interesting cases, and mallow is one of his go-to herbs for wound healing and to help with shock. Very interestingly. His primary herb for shock is actually a tincture of cayenne. A lot of times a dog will be hit by a car or something. They start going into shock, and your gums go pale, and their eyes kind of and you're going to die. He puts a little squirt of cayenne tincture in the back of the throat, and they just perk right back up. And it works. I'm not going to say it works for people because shock's really serious, but people have told me that it really does work for people too. So, but then he'll usually going to follow that up with a couple other herbs. Always mallow. And somehow mallow has this very comforting, calming, soothing effect on the system. It's also, it's a mucilaginous plant. It can help with bladder and kidney stones. It just kind of gives you a little more lubrication. It can help kind of loosen the phlegm in the lungs. It's just a really good herb. I can't remember all three herbs he uses in his wound treatment tincture or infusion. I think it's more like a poultice infusion. He's got a whole free class on this. So, Dr. Patrick Jones, I think you can find it on YouTube. I know you can find it on his site, which is homegrownherbalist.com, I guess. But mallow and plantain are in there, and they're just really fantastic herbs. So good. You can use them for irritable bowel and colitis and such as that. It's just another one of those herbs people consider to be a weed, which is absolutely ridiculous. We have native mallows. We have mallows that were brought here by probably every settler group that came from Europe. they used to be incredibly popular in England, and the flower buds before they open were called cheeses because they look like little cheese wheels. And it used to be every English kid knew about cheeses, and when they were out in the pastures and roadsides and such, they would just be snacking on those as they went along. And I really wish we could get back to that. The buds, they can be cooked and eaten, and I think they're very good. I like okra. In fact, I just bought some okra yesterday, and it turned out to be old and tough, and I was really disappointed. But if you don't like the mucilaginous quality, you might prefer them pickled. A lot of people that don't like cooked okra, as Jerry Clower, the Southern comedian, used to call it slick, slimy, boiled okra, and it is. I mean, it's really, if you don't grow up eating it, you're probably going to have to develop a taste for it. Most people love it pickled, though. I mean, even if they don't like okra cooked. Now, one thing I should say before I move on, just like with okra and purslane, anything that has this mucilaginous quality, cooking it with tomato really takes away that sliminess. I mean, it's amazing. You just fresh or canned stewed tomatoes, whatever you got, cook them together. I will normally, when I do that, I have some Creole and Cajun heritage, and I like things with a little bit of Creole seasoning. And if you listen to my show, you know that because I use it in basically every recipe that isn't a dessert. But you might just want to use some black pepper, crushed red pepper. I would definitely some cayenne if you don't have Creole seasoning. I kind of like that combination though. If I didn't have Creole seasoning, like I'm talking like Tony Chachere's or Paul Prudhomme's Cajun seasoning, if you can still find that on the shelf, or anything along those lines. I've got the Creole seasoning recipe in my Omnivore's Guide cookbook. I'm sure I've got it on my site somewhere. You can find it online. If you want to send me an email, I'll just send you that for free. No problem. It's just a mix of essentially cayenne, garlic powder, onion powder, a little oregano, black pepper, salt. I think that's it, actually. It's sort of like chili powder, but different. It's just got a different flavor to it. It's garlicky, and I like it. So if I didn't have that, I would do my okra and tomato with some garlic and some peppers. If I had some jalapenos or even a bell pepper, definitely some, a little something spicy, and I like that. And I would serve it over rice because, again, partially Creole heritage, and grew up in eastern North Carolina where rice was first grown in the United States, and we are a rice culture. Rice was basically served with every meal when I was a kid, when my grandmother would cook. You had rice with gravy. You had rice with tomatoes. My favorite was rice with okra and tomato. You can throw some corn in there, chopped corn. That is very nice. And, just simply cooked rice with some butter. It's one of my favorite things, really. And mallow's perfect substitute for okra. A little bit different flavor. It's unique, but I really actually like it a lot. What I would do, I would just cook those in a pan with some bacon fat and salt. Then I'd put in the tomatoes and the spices, and I'd bring it all together. A little fresh lemon juice is actually really nice on that. That can actually help cut that mucilaginous quality. Excellent side dish for chicken or grilled fish or a pork chop. Okra and tomato and rice with a pork chop. That was that was such a regular at my house, and absolutely one of my favorite meals. North Carolina's pork country too. We're the largest pork producer in the entire world, actually. Anyway, but even if I didn't have any meat, I absolutely love okra and tomato with rice and maybe a couple of deviled eggs, because I love deviled eggs. That's another thing we had basically every single meal. Cornbread, deviled eggs, and I mean fried cornbread, not baked cornbread like you get in the restaurant, but fried cornbread. That's a very eastern coastal thing. Rice. Potato salad was omnipresent. Some kind of gravy, beans and peas. That would be speckled butter beans and Dixie leaf field peas. The best things in the world that are impossible to find now. You have to grow them yourself, or find someone who does. And that was really the basis of every meal, and some fresh vegetables. Being part French, you got to have a salad, or you got to have some what they call crudité, and just fresh tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers. Always peppers. Again, that heritage. We eat a lot of peppers, and pretty unique in actually to the area. I think about the only family that grew and ate hot peppers. But anyway, so that's how I would do mallows. Eat them raw, see if you like the flavor, try them cooked, try them different ways, and it's a great way to get your herbal medicine is by eating it, and that's one of the primary ones. That's one you might actually want to incorporate into your diet every day if you have any digestive or urinary tract issues or anything like that. Another one now, this one is mainly found in the northeastern part of the United States, but its range does extend into the Appalachians and actually right into my region. But I don't have a lot of experience with it. It's called Marsh Marigold. Every now and then, I run across it. It's what I would call sort of an interesting spring edible. Beautiful flower. Nice, cheery little flower. I mean, when everything else is still dormant and cold, this is an early spring. Everything's wet and cold. You're going to find Marsh Marigold. And the only thing, it is said to be somewhat toxic when eaten raw. Now, like I said, it just grows kind of into my region, and because I'm at the higher elevations of the Appalachians, I don't actually know anybody really that harvests this one and eats it. So I haven't been able to ask an older forager or anything like that if it's okay to eat it raw. So because the books say it may be toxic raw, I've never tried it raw. And actually, most experts recommend boiling them in 2 or 3 changes of water before, to cook them and then serve, almost like you would with poke salad, phytolacca. Poke that has the same warnings. And as you know, if you listen to the show, I don't prepare poke that way. I'll eat it raw, and everybody says, oh, it's going to kill you if you eat it raw. I don't know about Marsh Marigold, so I cannot say if the experts say cook it in a couple of changes of water, they probably have a good reason to, and I'm just going to go with that. On this one, I'm going to trust the experts because the people that write the books, the ones that live up north and have a lot more experience with it than I do. But when you do cook it like that, it loses a lot of flavor. It's going to get a little mushy, so I would absolutely combine it with something that has a lot more flavor, like poke, actually. That would be a nice combination, and that's my kind of go-to in the early spring. Docks have that, or sorrels have that nice lemony flavor. Of course, dandelion, dandelion is ubiquitous, and you can also include the buds with the leaves, and so it's a pretty useful plant. And you can pickle the buds. They actually make a nice caper substitute. So I talked about this as well under dandelion, on the edible uses of dandelion, taking those buds and making like pickled capers out of them, and that's great. I love capers, and in that case, I'm just going to pickle these in vinegar. Of course, you could do a ferment, but to me, capers I associate with that kind of vinegary taste. So it's just a matter of heating up the vinegar, adding some salt, and pouring it over the buds. Stick them in the fridge and let them pickle. And once they're pickled, they could actually be stored. You could can them, obviously, but to me, it's more like a refrigerator pickle. And I love capers, especially with fish, and trout is very mild. I'm always looking for something to kind of perk up the trout, and capers are so good. And one way that I really like them, it is usually it's just a fresh garnish. But say I've got some breaded fish and I'm frying it in butter. It's really nice to, after the fish is fried, to take the fish out of the pan, add a little more butter and maybe a tablespoon of capers, maybe a little more, a little parsley or something, and kind of make a pan sauce, a butter caper sauce, and pour it over the fried fish. That's fantastic. And it really looks like a fancy meal that doesn't cost hardly anything. And if you make it with wild edibles, you're going to have an interesting flavor combination, especially if you use different flower buds for this. You could use nasturtiums. Nasturtium buds make a fantastic caper. Those 3, if you had them pickled, put in that sauce, serve it. It'd be as fine as any gourmet meal in any restaurant. I mean, this would impress any chef, and really impress them, because people who are into food like to taste new things. So now let's get to our medicinal of the week, and of course this comes from my book Weeds and Grasses of the American Southeast. And there are actually a couple, 3 or 4 under this heading. They're among the plants we call clover. Now, there's several plants we call clover. These are particularly trifolium. That means they have 3 leaves. Or they're sometimes called trefoil. It's an old word meaning they have 3 leaves. So I'm going to do the common names because there are a lot of them actually. So harefoot trefoil. This is Trifolium arvents, harefoot trefoil, old field clover, pussy clover, rabbit foot clover, stone clover. Trifolium dubium, known as lesser hop clover, lesser trefoil. It's a little bit smaller, in other words. It's a little hop clover, suckling clover, yellow shamrock, and suckling yellow clover. Trifolium hybridum, that's known as Alsike, yeah, that's the way you pronounce it, Alsike clover, and Trifolium pratense, probably most common in my region, known as cowgrass, peavine clover, purple clover, and red clover. By far, Trifolium pratense, red clover, is the most used of these clovers medicinally and the most common in my area. Trifolium red clover is a delicious wild edible, and I've done it. We've been through clover. I told you that my favorite uses for clover. It's great for snacking. It's great in salads. It's just fantastic. It does have some estrogenic properties, so I don't eat much of it. If you're a lady, go to town. I mean, well, I don't mean go to town. Go out in the field and eat as much as you like. Go to town's like an old saying for have at it. I don't know. Anyway. Plants for Future gives us a few different uses of Trifolium dubium. They say medicinal use of suckling clover. The plant is hemostatic. A poultice of the chopped leaves has been applied to cuts to stop bleeding. Trifolium hybridum, or hybridum, I don't know. Alsike clover. That's a hard one for me to say. A cold infusion of the plant has been used as a wash on the breasts of nursing mothers in order to increase milk flow. Again, these have some of these estrogenic qualities. And pratense, medicinal use of red clover. And this, like I said, this is the most common. Red clover is a safe and effective herb with a long history of medical usage. It is commonly used to treat skin conditions, normally in combination with other purifying herbs such as Arcticum lapa, that's burdock, and Rumex crispus, Rumex and dox, we've been through that. It is a folk remedy for cancer of the breast and a concentration decoction being applied to the site of the tumor in order to encourage it to grow outward and clear the body. I never give any recommendations for anything having to do with cancer. It's just too serious an issue. I don't know if that works or not. Okay, so take that with a grain of salt. Flavonoids in the flowers and leaves are estrogenic and may be of benefit in treatment of menopausal complaints. The flowering heads are alterative, gradually brings you back to health. Anti-scrofulous, antispasmodic, aperient, detergent, diuretic, expectorant, sedative, and tonic. Yes, it actually has a little bit of a calming property. It also has shown anti-cancer activity. Poultice of the herbs applied to local applications of cancerous growths. Internally, the plant is used for the treatment of skin complaints, especially eczema and psoriasis. Cancers of the breast, ovaries, and lymphatic system, chronic degenerative diseases, gout, whooping cough, and dry cough. The plant is normally harvested as it comes into flower, and some reports say that only the flowers are used. Yeah, but I don't use anything but the well. No, the leaves I use as a potter. They're edible when they're young and tender. Never had a lot of them though, because I don't like to use a lot of clover, so I don't know if you'd want to eat it, as a meal. They mention that the toxic iodylizine alkaloid what is that word? Slaframine? Yeah, Slaframine is often found in diseased clover, and that is true, okay? Even if the clover shows no external symptoms of disease, this alkaloid is being studied for its anti-diabetic and anti-AIDS activity, however. So, again, nothing to freak out about. It may even be useful, but I would not eat diseased clover. I would not use it in tinctures either. And also, you want to be very cautious if you've got dried clover. You don't let it rot. I mean, it's just kind of like hay in that regard. And but now, I wanted to start with the more modern one on this because red clover is a really important herb, and like with those anti-AIDS properties it may have, it's an important herb to know, and it's getting a little more look at, by the scientific communities. Now let's go back, though, to Dioscorides, ancient Greek herbalist who said of Trifolium arvens, it is restrictive to the intestines if a decoction is taken in a drink with wine, but for those with a fever with water. It, can kind of help with diarrhea and such. It is also hanged about one for inflammation of the groin. Hey, it has some estrogenic properties, just like it was tried topically. It grows in corn. Okay, we don't need to get into all that. Trifolium pratense, he mentions that it tasted similar to green chickpeas. The leaves are cooling, dissolving new edemas, pounded into small pieces and smeared on with bread. A decoction of them, taken as a drink, induces urine. Some plant it near beehives to attract bees. Gerard actually wrote of 40 clovers, okay? And these are not all the same family. He was not very educated in botany, to say the least. But he actually just kind of grouped them all together and said they could all be used the same. Stop. He was a good gardener. He was a really good gardener, but he wasn't much of a botanist. He liked to call them clover or three-leafed grass. Well, they're obviously not a grass. They don't look anything like grass, but he said they were good against fretting pains of the guts and driveth forth tough and slimy humors that cleave to the guts. I think he's meaning like congested mucus, basically. Okay, the leaves boiled with a little Barrow's grease. It's hog lard. Used as a poultice, take away hot swellings and inflammations. Oxen and other cattle do feed of the herb. Okay, yes, obviously, and favorite of sheep and lambs and such. And bees are attracted to it. Pliny writeth and setteth down for certain that the leaves hereof do tremble and stand upright against the coming of storm or tempest. Yeah, you can actually use clover to kind of predict the weather a little bit. They have kind of a natural barometer. A lot of plants do that. And then he gets into one. I really don't even think it is a clover at all. So I'm going to skip that one. Let's see what Culpeper said about 100 years later. We'll skip his astrological advisement and just go to the herbal. The leaves and flowers are good to ease the griping pains of gout, the herb being boiled and used in a clyster. If the herb be made into a poultice applied to inflammations, it will ease them. Yes, clovers have a cooling property that's mildly astringent. They actually are good topically for wounds and swellings. Very common use just about everywhere, from Native Americans to Europeans. It's one of the go-tos. The juice dropped into the eyes is a familiar medicine with many country people to take away the pin and web, as they call it, in the eyes, swollen, itchy, irritated eyes. It also allays the heat and blood shooting of them. Bloodshot eyes is all he means. It doesn't mean like blood shooting out of your eyes or something. Country people do also in many places drink the juice thereof against the biting of an adder. I'm so glad we don't have adders where I live, and I can just look at these old remedies for snake bite as interesting and not have to put them into practice. And having boiled the herb in water, they first wash the place with a decoction and then lay some of the herb also in the hurt place. The herb also boiled in swine's grease and so made into an ointment is good to apply to the biting of any venomous creature. We like I said, we have no poisonous snakes at my elevation of the mountain. We do have the brown recluse spider and black widow spider, so I will take that one under advisement. The herb also being bruised and heated between tiles and applied hot to a person causes them to make water who had it stopped before. In other words, it was good for strangury, and I'm guessing you put it in the bladder region. He didn't really say. It is held likewise to be good for wounds. The decoction of the herb and flowers with the seed and root taken for some time helps women that are troubled with the whites. That's like leukorrhea, basically. The seed and flowers boiled in water and afterwards made into a poultice with some oil and applied helps hard swellings and imposthumes. Now, getting up to somewhat more modern British tradition, we'll go to Miss Grieve in the 1930s. She said medicinal actions and uses of red clover. She's particularly talking about pretense in this one. The fluid extract of trifolium is used as an alternative and antispasmodic. An infusion made by 1 ounce to 1 pint of boiling water may with advantage be used in cases of bronchial and whooping cough. Fomentations and poultices of the herb have been used as local applications to cancerous growths. We'll stay here with red clover. No? Okay, I got a good entry here from Brother Aloysius, that was Father Nape's protege, on hare's foot clover. That's Trifolium arvens, infused in water or wine, useful for diarrhea, dysentery, sore throat, hernia, and heavy menstruation. So the Trifolium arvens has more of a astringent quality. He said of red clover, used for, and that's pretense again, used for chronic cough, lung ulcers, colic, leukorrhea, irregular menstruation, asthma, and as a compress for inflamed eyes. Turning to the Russian tradition, Igor Vilovich Zevin says, taken internally, an infusion of red clover is recommended for treating colds and coughs due to colds, as well as bronchitis and bronchial asthma. In Russian folk medicine, red clover infusions are often also used to treat anemia, emaciation, asthenia, and diabetes. They also promote the onset of menstruation, relieve cramps and spasms, and treat uterine hemorrhages, menorrhagia. Folk dermatologists recommend drinking red clover infusions to treat allergic skin conditions, including vitiligo, vasculitis, childhood eczema, and balding. Red clover infusions are also used externally to treat inflammation of the eyes and ears. A decoction of the leaves and flowers is prescribed to treat a wide variety of health complaints, including chest pain, malaria, chronic rheumatism, kidney problems, inflammations of the bladder. As a tonic, red clover decoction makes an effective stomach remedy. A decoction from the roots is a traditional folk remedy to relieve inflammations of the ovaries and to reduce the size of benign fibroid tumors. So he specifically says benign fibroid tumors. In Russia, red clover tincture is recommended to help reduce serum cholesterol and is considered an effective preventative for arteriosclerosis. Let's turn to the American tradition. We'll start with the Thomsonians. They used red clover, the pretense, as a cancer plaster. So I've already told you how that was used, and whether it works or not, I have no idea. And said they made a salve out of it, and said the salve was adhesive, emollient, and antiseptic. Antiseptic. Well, styptic stops bleeding. I'm assuming they just mean styptic, because otherwise that would mean increases bleeding. But you know, they already said it's good for wounds, so I'm thinking they mean styptic. Emollient softening, good for old sores, cancers, sore lips. When used, it should be. Oh, we don't need to get in that. And it was basically just made with lard or tallow and clover. And yeah, very interesting. It was official medicine in 1898. King's Medical Dispensatory says that red clover is an excellent alternative and one of the few remedies which favorably influences pertussis. In early editions of this work, it was stated that a strong infusion of the plant is said to afford prompt relief for whooping cough, suspending the spasmodic cough entirely for 2 to 3 days. Wow. Since then, the remedy has come into extensive use but the statement should be modified as it does not reach all classes of the case, so it wouldn't help everybody with whooping cough. When the proper case is found, it acts promptly, but as yet the specific indication in this complaint has not been discovered. It is also a remedy for other spasmodic coughs, as those of measles, bronchitis, laryngitis, that word I can never pronounce, Phthis, so phthisis. It's like, I can't believe anyone ever came up with a word like that. It's just baffling to me. I mean, yeah. Anyway, it is an excellent internal agent for those individuals disposed to tibial and other forms of ulcers, and it unquestionably retards the growth of carcinoma. It's not actually carcinoma. I know how to pronounce that. It's an old way of, another old term, and it's carcinomata. There we go, carcinomata. And may be freely administered to those of cancerous conditions. The extract spread on linen or soft leather has long been said to be an excellent remedy for cancerous ulcers. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but we're starting to see a lot of common use here throughout the ages in various countries, but even they say this assertion, however, has not been so well verified as its action in retarding the growth when administered internally for a prolonged period. It is also highly recommended in ill-conditioned ulcers of every kind and deep ragged edges and other badly conditioned burns. Yeah, very good burn remedy. That's so is mallow, by the way, and really red clover and mallow and plantain are like go-tos in Appalachian medicine for burns and such. Under specific indications and uses, they said some forms of whooping cough, irritation of the larynx and pulmonary passages, spasmodic cough, cough from measles, and certain cancerous conditions. Let's see. Maybe I can wrap it up here with Cloverleaf Farms. Red Clover. I figured I'd go to Cloverleaf Farms Herbal Encyclopedia, which is an excellent website. But what better? They're actually named after it. They said that, and they mentioned red clover should not be taken with Coumadin or other blood thinning medications. That is true. When gathering the herb in the wild, it is advisable to check the blossoms carefully and make sure they are not moldy, diseased, or sprayed. And that's what I was saying when I said it. It was kind of like spoiled hay. Spoiled hay has a vanilla type scent, and that's actually coumarin. Coumarin is the, I guess, natural precursor to the drug now called Coumadin, which is a blood thinner. And that's why you can't let your cattle eat spoiled hay. And, well, not that you would, but you wouldn't either. That is very similar with clover. When I said don't eat diseased clover, it's for the same reason. Now, don't freak out because the two sound alike. Coumarin is not Coumadin. When we use sweet woodruff, it has that vanilla scent because it has coumarin in much stronger amounts, and we actually use that as a culinary herb. Okay, so don't think it's going to kill you. But if you are on prescription blood thinners, I would be very careful with it. Very, very careful with it. They mentioned that it's native to Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. So red clover, at least, was brought here. And they also mentioned that it's a member of the bean family, or Fabaceae. It's leguminous, and one of the main reasons people like clovers is they are nitrogen fixing. Clover lawns used to be far more common than grass lawns. Far more common, and I really prefer them. One, they're self-fertilizing because they're pulling nitrogen from the air and fixing it in the soil through a fungal relationship with their roots. But if you planted your lawn with white clover, you never have to mow it. And it'll grow thick enough to keep the weeds out if that's something you care about. And it's nice and soft. It feels cooler than grass. You can just want to lie down on it. Moss makes a very nice lawn. We can do that in the mountains. My whole backyard is like nothing but moss and prunella. But in the front, I got a lot of grass, but then I can't really get rid of the grass now because I got so many valuable herbs that grow wild up in it. So I do actually have to cut it from time to time, which I don't like doing. Um, had I my preference, definitely white clover. It doesn't grow as tall as red clover, and just makes a really nice lawn. And you can walk on it. And in fact, when you walk on it, it helps make it put out that nitrogen. It's great for soil erosion. It's, in my opinion, clover is superior to grass in nearly every way. So, that's, these things are going to become very important in the next few years if President Trump's reelected, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be in his administration, and he's big into permaculture. So even on Trump's interview with Joe Rogan yesterday, they started talking about regenerative agriculture. I'm just like mind blown. Okay, for years I've been like the only conservative in permaculture that had any kind of voice. Not the only one. There actually are several others. And Dr. Robert Malone, Joel Salatin, but it's generally been dominated by the left, and now a conservative Republican president, and I guess basically a nonpartisan Kennedy. Looks like they're going to be promoting permaculture and regenerative agriculture in ways that no one could have ever imagined before. I mean, Bill Mollison is probably turning over in his grave. I mean, he was the father of permaculture, they say. There were actually several fathers of permaculture, but he's the guy that gave it its name, essentially, and popularized it, and put together the course where you get your certification. Yeah, he's about as far left as Karl Marx. I mean, he was almost a communist. I think he was a communist, actually. Likable, irascible, but very offensive at times, and really far left with his politics. How ironic is it that President Trump, the kind of businessman Bill Mollison would hate, I mean, with every fiber of his being, and with complete opposite politics, it looks like he's going to be promoting permaculture and regenerative agriculture. This is going to turn the world on its head. I mean, yeah, this is going to definitely shake up the USDA, the EPA, all that. Our state agricultural agencies that have been trying to tell people there was no alternative other than to spray everything with Roundup and use chemical fertilizers and do everything in, mechanized on large scales, and if you're a small farmer you might as well quit. And no, don't you dare use natural compost or anything like that. That's just crazy talk. We're all chemicals all the time because that's who funds the agricultural departments at the universities, and that's who puts the money into these government programs. Imagine this is I'm very excited because RFK is also into herbal medicine, and Weston A. Price Foundation. He's got a big association with them. Natural omnivore diets and grass-fed beef and good clean food and not processed. And man, I mean, I'm excited. I'm really excited and hoping and praying that Trump is elected and that Kennedy gets to do what he wants to do, and Elon Musk gets to do what he wants to do. We got some of the most brilliant people that have ever really, had any involvement with government could actually get a chance to do something good. As I always say, love him or hate him. Wow. I think he's fantastic. Anyway, let's get back to Cloverleaf Farm. Oh, man. They said one of the traditional cancer cures they mentioned. Now I always say, you know what I say, okay. But this one's from the Tennessee, so I wanted to mention it. It's this is Appalachian folk medicine, and yes, red clover was used in. It said place 2 or 3 teaspoons of red clover blossoms into a cup of boiling water. Steep the mixture until the tea is formed. Drink 1 cup a day. This tea has also been used in heart disease, lung disease, and any other serious illness. That comes from 1917 herb book Health from Field and Forest, which listed red clover as one of the best blood purifiers, especially in cases of cancer. So interesting, interesting. They said in Ireland, an old remedy for winter colds was to drink clover tea. German Mennonites brought the plant with them to North and South America, and to this day it is still used to treat whooping cough, cramp, and stomach cancer. The roots are used to treat diphtheria. The Chinese, they use a lot of red clover. Cloverleaf Farm says Chinese revere red clover, calling it sun sao, as a tonic, using the sap to treat colds and influenza. At one time in Chinese history, the dried plant was burned on altars as an incense. Under key actions, alterative, antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory, diuretic, possible estrogenic activity. They get into a little chemistry of it. I mean, you just think, Cloverleaf Farm's going to do a great job on clover. Well, they do, and I do like their site quite a bit. Red clover does contain coumarin that reduces blood clotting. Volatile oils in red clover are thought to have a mild anti-inflammatory property, useful in treating eczema and skin inflammation. Also contains compounds that help calm coughs and reduce airway congestion. Contemporary Chinese researchers have proven that the herb kills certain viral and fungal infections and has an estrogen-like function, and it is an antispasmodic and expectorant. Freshly crushed leaves and flowers applied to insect bites and stings, another very common Appalachian use. That's along with plantain and tobacco. Red clover is one of those we put on stings, and it really does work. I wish I had some right now because I have several ant bites on my hand. They're really driving me crazy. I react to ants like almost nothing else. They blister, and I was cleaning up the family cemetery after all the rain we've had, and the ants got me. Anyway, let's see. Used as a compress or tincture for arthritis pain. Used tinctures taken internally for eczema and psoriasis. Compress for arthritis pain and gout. Sorry about that. Ointments used on lymphatic swelling and made by covering fresh flowers with water and simmering them in a slow cooker for 48 hours. So this is the exact same thing that Gerard was saying, just instead of a copper pot and all his complicated stuff, they use a slow cooker, which I like actually. So simmered in a slow cooker for 48 hours. This is strained and the residue evaporated to semi-dryness and then combined with an equal amount of an ointment base. Ointment base could be anything from I really like coconut oil actually, but anything that's going to allow you to smear it on, basically. I mean, traditionally it would have been lard, and in many cultures, especially like German, they would especially use bear fat. I mean, that was considered to be medicinal in and of itself. So just do whatever you want. Eyewash from diluted tincture or a well-strained infusion is used to treat conjunctivitis. Very nice, very nice. A syrup made from infusions used for stubborn dry coughs. Traditionally has been used mainly to treat skin conditions and normally in combination with such purifying herbs as burdock and yellow dock, and as an expectorant, especially used for spasmodic coughs. Its estrogenic effects may be of value in treating menopausal complaints. Like soybeans and other legumes, red clover is rich in isoflavone compounds which have effects similar to estrogen. Very true. And the reason I don't eat soybeans, much. I really don't like soybeans, okay? I don't like the taste, I don't like the flavor, unless they've been fermented. I absolutely love miso, soy sauce, anything along those, just fermented black soybeans that they use in Chinese cooking. Something about the flavor once they've been fermented, I really go for, and that's essentially the only way I eat soybeans. I hate tofu, despise it, disgusting stuff. I know a lot of people like it. Yeah, I tried to be a vegetarian in my teens, and tofu did not work for me. I thought it was horrible then. I think it's worse now. So I'm definitely more of a meat eater for my physical constitution and what makes me the most healthy. But if I had to live off that mess, I could not do it. But again, fermented. I actually like tempeh. Tempeh is very good. What's really nice is, did you know you don't have to use soybeans to make any of that stuff? You can make tempeh out of any legume, including peanuts. I mean, seriously. It has a texture and taste almost similar to chicken, but if you can use chickpeas, you could use lentils, you could use, I don't even, white beans, black beans, kidney beans, and you can do the same thing in making your soy sauces and your miso and such. Absolutely does not have to be soy. It's just going to have a little different flavor depending on which one you use. I cannot wait until I can get a facility set up and just start doing all the ferments on kind of a large scale that I like to do a little here and there. Maybe even start marketing them. I'd love to do 47 different types of soy sauce and miso using different beans and tempeh and and that's a minimum. I mean, they're literally like 10,000 edible legumes. So I mean, the possibilities are endless. One of my favorites is so hard to find. It's I can't remember the Spanish name it usually goes under, but it means eye of the goat, and it actually tastes like beef. Okay, this is a bean that tastes like beef. Now, imagine that made into tempeh or miso. Yeah. So I've got a lot of plans I want to do. And of course, I love to make fermented hot sauces. And yeah, I mean, I could do so much with legumes and peppers in terms of fermenting. I've been wanting to do this for years. So what I'm going to have to do is literally get maybe a big steel building or an old factory building, something like that, and just bring in the vats, maybe set up a pottery wheel and make the big old miso jars the way they do in Asia, and see what I can do. And I mean, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know when I'll be able to start on that project, but I'll tell you when I do. All right, y'all. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.